Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's Wednesday, my dudes. We're back in the Champs Corner, which means it's time to talk everything Lone Star Fantasy Football. I am your host, the man whose religion is NFL football. I am your reigning champion and Beaver Liquor extraordinaire, Mr. Benjamin A. Hinckley. Now, before we dive into that Week 2 recap and Week 3 outlook, I want to take a brief moment to give a shout out to our sponsors. This episode of the Champs Corner was brought to you by Nick Chubb's knee and the number 0. Because that's how many ligaments he has left, and that's how many games the Browns are going to win without him. But speaking of 0, despite a 0-point performance from his defense, Tyler Casey and his Golden Scrotum remain unblemished as they defeated the winless Scooch Magooch. Kyle remains perfect in his return to the Lone Star Fantasy League, as Billy has to find himself a temporary replacement for the injured Saquon Barkley. In the Battle of Undefeateds, Jacob and his Diamond Dogs came out on top after Nick Chubb's career-ending injury derailed any hopes for a Texas Teabagger comeback. In other action, Joe defeated Max, which means Joe will not be starting out this season 0-2 like last year, and Max was left wondering how the fuck a kicker got to be his second highest point scorer. Wrapping up the Week 2 action, Justin Deweese and his Tig Old Gritties got a modicum of revenge for last year's championship game as they remain undefeated and knock off the Beaver Lickers, sending the reigning champions to 0-2, their worst start to a season since 2019. Looking forward to Week 3, we have yet another Battle of the Undefeated as Jacob and his Diamond Dogs take on Tyler and his Golden Scrotum. Billy looks to get into the win column facing off against Joe, who himself is trying to get his record to above 500 for the first time since 2021. The Tig Old Gritties are going to be looking for another huge performance behind that dominating Dallas defense as they look to send Max to 0-3. On the topic of 0-3, you have both Scooch Magooch and the Beaver Lickers hoping to avoid such a record and use this week's win as a jumping off point to turning their season around. Wrapping up the Week 3 action, we have Chris and his Texas Teabaggers looking to hand Kyle his first losses of the season as he looks to expand the gap between himself and the rest of the Panhandler Conference. And that covers everything we have coming up here in Week 3, which means that our time together has come to an end. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the Champs Corner. I am your host and your champ, Mr. Benjamin A. Hinckley. Let's go, Pats. I'll see you down the road, and long live the Beaver Lickers.